My name is Ugomma. I was sent out of my husband's house by my in-laws. Now they want my son. My story is one of many stories that we African women face in our house in the hands of our in-laws. Listen to my story and learn how I was able to save myself and my son, and how I was able to recover myself to regain my mental state. Once upon a time, in a quiet village in Okoko, there was a woman named Ugomma. She had been married to Emeka for a while, but they didn't have any children. Ugomma was a full-sized woman, and Emeka loved her just the way she was. Everything was peaceful until Emeka's mother and his not-so-nice sisters came to live with them. Emeka's elder sister, Chichi, had a history of causing problems. She had just separated from her husband after 7 years of marriage and couldn't seem to get along with anyone or anything. Wherever she went, chaos followed, and this time she brought her jealousy and trouble to her brother's house. Emeka's other sister, Adanne, had recently gone through a tough breakup. She was really bitter about it. So with Chichi's chaos, Adanne's bitterness, and his mother all living in the same house with Emeka and his wife, the once peaceful home now became more complicated. Before Ugomma got married to Emeka, she had a thriving business selling bulk women wrappers. Emeka's sister, Chichi and Adanne, pretended to be friendly with Ugomma, but deep down within them, they didn't want their brother Emeka to marry a plus-size woman. However, Adanne regularly visited Ugomma, pretending to be interested in her, taking advantage of the fact that Ugomma was about to become her brother's wife. Chichi and Adanne usually received gifts and items from Ugomma, turning the situation into one where Ugomma's kindness was taken advantage of. Ugomma and Emeka, who had been married for quite a while, were now desperately in search of a child, but none was forthcoming, and this started to weigh upon their hearts. The situation led to a sense of concern and worry for both of them. Adding to the complexity of their lives were Emeka's sister, who seemed to have a certain expectation from Emeka. When the expectations weren't met by Emeka, they would turn to Ugomma, making demands on her as well. It created a challenging environment for Ugomma, who found herself caught in the middle of family dynamics and the pressure to fulfill their expectations. Emeka's sister, perhaps not fully understanding the struggles Ugomma and Emeka were going through, continued to make requests and demands. It seems like a never-ending cycle where Ugomma was expected to provide solution to their problem whenever they wanted, and this got out of control. As years passed, without the arrival of a child, the pressure intensified. Emeka, torn between his love for his wife Ugomma and the expectation of his family, found himself in a delicate balancing act. Ugomma, on the other hand, faced the emotional burden of not only dealing with the challenges of childlessness, but also having to navigate the demand of her husband's extended family. Ugomma had reached a point where she felt the need to assert herself in her own home. For quite some time, Emeka's sister and mother-in-law seemed to have a routine of enjoying the comfort of the house without contributing much to the household. Ugomma, noticing this pattern, found herself burdened with all the responsibility of taking care of their family, from cooking for everyone to washing their clothes and doing the dishes. Feeling overwhelmed and realizing the situation was becoming unfair, she decided it was time to set boundaries. Then she mustered the courage to say no to them when faced with unreasonable demands and expectations. She recognized the importance of self-respect and fairness in the household. However, when Ugomma took a stand for herself and spoke up, Emeka's sister, Chichi, reacted with anger. It seems that challenging the status quo was not well received by them, and Emeka's sister did not appreciate Ugomma standing up for herself. This turned into an argument, and this made things tense in the home. When Ugoma spoke up about the feelings and what she needed to be done in her house, they all disagreed, making things even more complicated for her in her own home. Chichi and her sister did not make things easy for her, neither was her mother-in-law. As Ugoma continued to assert herself in her own home, hoping that things would change for the better, Chichi felt very bad about the situation and decided to take matters into her own hands. Life went on, but it became incredibly challenging for Ugoma as she faced hostility and unpleasant comments from Emeka's sister and his mother and her mother-in-law. Chichi, on the other hand, went as far as labeling Ugoma as a barren woman, using such hurtful accusations against her and then causing emotional distress. Emeka, who had initially been supportive of his wife, found himself caught in the midst of a family discord. Despite his occasional warning to his sister and mother, the dynamics of the home had become increasingly difficult for both he and his wife Ugoma. The situation took a more troubling turn when Chichi, after a brief trip to the village, returned and Emeka unexpectedly turned against his wife Ugoma. The sudden shift in Emeka's attitude towards his wife Ugoma seemed like nothing she did was enough to please everyone at home, not even her own husband. The emotional turmoil on Ugoma was intense, and she faced rejection and mistreatment within her own family. To make matters worse, Emeka stopped providing for the home, stopped giving her financial support, and this affected her and her business, as she had to take money from her business to take care of the home and feed all of them. Ugoma, who had a once thriving business of selling women wrapper in bulk, now found herself solely responsible for the well-being of the entire family, and her business began to shrink. The lack of support from her husband and the hostile environment took a toll on Ugoma, and she became very unhappy in her own home, and this caused pain and frustration for Ugoma. Eventually, Emeka's sister managed to drive Ugoma out of her husband's house on the grounds that she had not been pregnant for so many years. After Ugoma left her husband's house, she focused on caring for herself and her business. She spent time nurturing her business, trying to bring it back to the state it was before she married her husband. And after some weeks and months of hard work, she achieved remarkable success. However, amidst her efforts, she remained unaware of the tiny life that was growing within her. Unknown to her, when she left her husband's house, she was just some few weeks pregnant, and due to her size, she didn't know she was pregnant. It was until she visited the hospital after being sick for several weeks, and the doctor asked her to take a test, and then he proclaimed to her that she was far gone. She was so happy, but she decided to keep this joy and happiness to herself. Meanwhile, back at Emeka's residence, his sister had arranged a marriage to another woman for Emeka. However, the interference of Emeka's mother and sister proved too much for this new wife, and after some few months, she left the marriage. The arrival of Ugoma's son reached the ears of Emeka, and this stirred a desire within him to reunite back with his wife and his newborn child, and this prompted him to confront his mother and his sister. He accused them of scattering his marriage to Ugoma. Unknown to Emeka, he had been held and controlled by a charm done by his sister when she visited the village earlier on. Chichi had gone to seek the help of a wicked charmer in the village who gave her a strong charm to manipulate her brother and destroy her brother's marriage, all for her own selfish aim. It seems as if the scale had fallen off Emeka's eye, and his newfound clarity posed a new threat to Chichi's scheme. But this made her to go make a stronger charm, and she became more wicked in her intentions. This time, when she came back, she decided to target Ugoma's son. Ugoma named her son God's gift, and this name had a profound effect on him. One day, Chichi came to visit Ugoma under the guise of trying to reconcile Ugoma and her brother and to bring Ugoma home with their son. She also came to beg for Ugoma's forgiveness. But as she was talking to Ugoma, she silently and quietly threw a charm towards Ugoma's son. But unfortunately, the charm reversed back, causing her to scream slightly. And Ugoma looked at Chichi with a curious gaze and asked what the problem was. Chichi, who looked as if she was in pain, just said nothing was the matter. And then she decided to increase her negative energy and send a big energy towards God's gift. This time, what hit her was more than a thunder strike, and she first went blind and started shouting for help. This time, as she was crying and begging for forgiveness, Ugoma told her, "You think I don't know what you were doing? My son is protected by God, and you and your foolish act have cost you your sight." Chichi started to ask for forgiveness and was pleading and crying. Ugoma opened the door and shoved her out of her house. After a few weeks, Chichi became paralyzed due to her wicked act. Ugoma continued to take care of herself and her son, and her business continued to flourish, leaving her past behind to make her life and that of her son a happier one.